how we've been pathologized as humans and how we now pathologize ourselves. And so much, I mean, this is kind of edgy to say, and this is my current inquiry. Like, say, for example, the neurodiversity piece, we've got this whole thing now about, I'm massively what would be called neurodiverse. And I'm like, well, hang on a minute. Who got to determine what is normal that I am now measured of? Who got to say what's at the top, what we should all be? It's the same with the racism issue, the whiter the skin, all of that. It's like, who got to decide what is neuronormal? Is it just because it's the majority? Why does that make that right? And
well, we don't know if it was ever the majority. That's the thing.
Exactly.
Because actually, now that people are understanding more about autism and ADHD and highly sensitive, I mean, most people that I know are like, oh, but I'm all those things,
Precisely.
I have, and you read all this, that you read the deeper kind of symptoms and then understand about masking. And I mean, a lot of the women, especially that I know that are within the more spiritual communities, are like, oh, but yeah, like tick, 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 tick. And it's like, well, maybe the human normal, if you like, is actually more neurodiverse, but what was kind of created as that normal thread never actually was.
Exactly my point. So the narrative is, we'll go with the majority, but that's been created fictitiously by a small group of people somewhere in some blooming university or wherever, going, oh, we've decided this is normal because actually this is, white middle-aged men from America or England or somewhere like that. And there in a way was just another bomb into the monocropping of humanity and the monocropping of the natural world, where we don't want diversity because we can't control the people if we have diversity. We need, and we can't control the people if they're free thinkers, if they're creatives, if they're connected to their feelings, if they're embodied, if they're kinesthetic, if they're intuitive, all of these qualities. And yeah, so I don't want to use this term neurodiverse, because the word is, the phrase has this implicit assumption in it that there's some majority normal that we should all be, and then we're a problem if we're not that. Now I see it that the culture is the problem, the society is the problem, the collective teachings, if you want, about how we should and shouldn't be, as we arrived into our culture, into our world, into our city, into our town. This is who you should and shouldn't be. This is how you should and shouldn't behave in order to belong and in order to be welcomed. And because feeling like we belong is such a deep need, we'll throw all kinds of parts of ourselves under the bus in order to meet that one thing. So I'll now deny all these parts of myself, and yes, I'll pathologize myself even and go, yes, I've got a problem, I'm sorry, can you make allowances for me? And I feel the shift is actually the cultural shift, where we start to really challenge and question all of these principles that have been given to us about what we should and shouldn't be, and my unique neuro-brilliance is my unique neuro-brilliance, and no one else has that. And there was something powerful for me about getting tested and diagnosed. I didn't want to have, I don't want those labels, I don't want to be tested, I don't want to be like them boxed in as some pathology and like blah. But there was something key about it for me, because it gave me a sense of compassionate acceptance, first of all. Like, oh, this isn't just me struggling, this is how I'm wired. So it brought compassion towards myself. And once I got that piece, I was like, hang on a minute, yeah, but I'm not the problem. And then I was able to really claim these ways that I am and actually see the brilliance of them, and how they've really made it possible for me to do the work I do in the world, number one. And number two, bring the creativity and the gifts and the connection that I have.
Yeah, absolutely. And a kind of understanding that when you're trying to do it the way that you quote unquote should be, that it wasn't working and it will never work.
No.
And as many people can tell you, you need to do this, you need to do it like that, but that will never work for you. And I think what comes to me when you're speaking about this is, you know, the education system that we have globally, because it's a colonial system, it's like a monocrop.
Yeah.
And what we are is like a diverse ecosystem with so many different species and so many different ways of being. And in that village that you're talking about, we would each have a unique gift that we would be bringing to that space.
Yeah.
And so we wouldn't want to all be the same, because what I would be able to give to the village would be so different to what you're giving, and we'd be born into these kind of roles, and actually our ancestors, our elders would be looking at us to be like, okay, like, who is this, and what they're bringing something else that we need.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen Encanto, the Disney film, but it's a beautiful way of showing this story of how everyone will bring a different gift to a family, to a village, and they're completely different. And so, you know, one of the girls can like lift really heavy things, and another one can put flowers everywhere and make everything beautiful. And so everyone is allowed to be in their difference. Yeah. And that's what makes everything work.
Absolutely. So for me, there's the shift is, rather than here's a set of options of who you can be as a human and try and fit yourself into one of them, or let's have a look and find out who you are as a human, see and notice what it is that makes you come alive, and then tend and nurture that and champion you to bring that as much as we possibly can. Now, that way of growing a human, of tending and looking after a human, doesn't work on, it's like it's way more effort. It's way more effort in a school. It's like now you're going to have loads more teachers, loads more classrooms, loads more subjects, loads more, you know, and it's like, well, that's a bit of a pain in the arse, and economically that's not doable. So let's just get everyone in, give them 6 options, and they can choose one of those options, and then we'll praise them and reward them for how well they do in one of those options. And if they don't fit into those options, then we need to put them in a special place and try and make them fit into one of those options.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you know, and this that we're speaking about, it feels like it's the same principle in the systems of oppression. It's the same thing in essence that's happening. You know, we're just only allowed to value a very narrow bandwidth, and because we're so desperate to belong, and to be exiled is just the worst thing for us, we'll deny all these parts of ourselves just to meet this one thing, to belong. Because exile is just, it's worse than death.